We want to turn our attention to the economic news and also that which we cannot avoid, which are the several protests nationwide, not only in major cities, but also in medium-sized cities, small cities, protests against racial inequality as well as police brutality. Joining us to discuss what we are experiencing in the nation's capital is Huffington Post front page editor Philip Lewis. And Phil, you were in the protests covering these events over the weekend. What was this like?
Yes, I was there on Friday and Saturday in Lafayette Park in D.C. Near the White House, and I mean it was very tense, especially as the sun started to set. You know, you could pretty much see just how intense that things got. But being inside of it was just a whole nother level, and especially the later it got on Saturday. I would say that's probably the most intense reaction I've seen from the police to kind of quell the protests. That part. So we saw tear gas, we saw rubber bullets, we saw other forms of just ways to quell the protests, and so it was intense.
Phil, it's Julie here. A lot of us have been monitoring all of this on social media, and like almost everything these days, it's difficult to tell what is real and what is not, what is fact and what is fiction when you're monitoring these events. As someone who was there on the ground, we've seen a lot of reports about police being aggressive with protesters who were being largely peaceful. So I'm curious, first of all, about the accuracy of that in your experience. And secondly, we have seen an awful lot of reports of police attacking journalists who were clearly identified as such. So I'm curious your experience on that front also.
Yeah, regarding your first point, there were definitely instances. There was a true difference between Friday and Saturday, and so Friday you saw a level of action from the police on Friday that was very different from the level on Saturday, and I'd note that that's after Trump had tweeted about President Trump tweeted about MAGA night at the White House. So the level that we kind of saw of aggression from the police on Saturday was quite different after we saw that tweet. One thing I will note is that there were multiple, and this is just something I've been thinking about for the last few days, is that I saw several Black women out there with megaphones pleading with people not to throw things at the police, not to set things on fire, not to shatter windows. They were pleading, with megaphones. And so that to me showed that there were people that were trying to do their best to quell a lot of the violence that was out there. But there were a lot of people who were who were kind of ignoring that.
Phil, I'm curious, the White House, we've seen the tweets from the president. There's been great criticism that he is pouring fuel on a fire. Who at the White House is taking lead to address the nation, if not the president?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, there was a report yesterday. I can't quite remember. I believe it was the New York Times that said, the president went into a bunker because the reason was to just be silent. He wanted to be silent about. He had to be silent about the entire thing because there was nothing really that he could say. And so I really, that's a great question, and it needs to be answered from someone in the administration.
Philip, it's Brian Chung. We heard from the president that he's blaming a lot of the violence on Antifa when its presence is not necessarily proven. Here in my neighborhood in New York City in Prospect Heights, there was mostly peaceful demonstration. But when there was some violence, the NYPD also returned to the same kind of excuse, saying that there was some kind of organized, faction of people that were doing this type of thing. Yeah. Based on what you were seeing in D.C., was there any indication that there was organization in the instances where there was violence? Because as you just mentioned, there were people inside of these protests that, on the other hand, were actually actively telling people not to do that.
Yeah. So one of the people with the megaphones was was basically yelling, Antifa, you need to go. We do not accept Antifa here. We reject them. Like they don't belong here. And so there were some instances of other Black people, so like kind of pushing away other people who seem to be organized, people who seem to be belong to different aspects, and they were saying like, we live here, like we're protesting, but we also live here. And so that was a point that I definitely saw just happening on the ground, that there were people actively trying to quell like a lot of the violence, but it kind of happened anyway.
All right. Philip Lewis is the front page editor of Huffington Post, one of our sister publications at Verizon Media. It's redundant, but please be safe. I know that journalists, you go into the thick of things, and we wish the best for you.
No, thank you.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.